All right, Nuggets fans, welcome in to Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by good friends here at Mile High Sports and FanDuel. I'm your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here. I am ready to discuss the schedule drop for the Denver Nuggets that happened yesterday, recording this on Thursday night to release on Friday morning to give you a full reaction to the schedule. This will be about 30 minutes or so, basically a breakdown, some details. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds here because, look, things change throughout the season. You never know what's ultimately going to happen. But I do think that there are some nuances and some takeaways that we can have at the beginning and to circle some dates, to circle some exciting places for Nuggets fans to be looking on this upcoming schedule. If you didn't see it, it got released at about, I want to say 1:15 Mountain Time yesterday on Thursday, and it was not a great schedule. Not a great schedule for Denver. There are some good things, like there are some days that you get to circle and be very excited about, but my take is this, and I'll say it right at the top and then kind of explain my thinking. I think the schedule sucks for Denver. I think this is a horrible, horrible schedule, and it's not great. It's the hand you're dealt, so it is what it is. But I do think that Nuggets fans can feel a little bit peeved, and I'm going to explain why here. Um, but before we get into all of the different layers, um, it was good to see the NBA kind of like have a really interesting kind of breakdown here where you have all of these different platforms that are now being introduced into things. If you didn't know, Prime is being introduced as a new opportunity for streaming for the NBA. NBC's taking over for TNT, and Peacock is going to be their subscription service that they use for streaming. So there's going to be some new places. There's a little bit of a new feel for how the schedule is going to be released. What I will say up top, I believe for Nuggets fans that are in the Denver area, 67 of the 82 games will be on altitude. So don't feel like you're going to be squeezed out of things too much. There will be some games that you may have to go to other channels for. But I do think that for the vast majority of folks that have committed to altitude and know what they're getting from that, that is going to be there for most of it. There will be some exclusive channels, and that's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles in the modern sports world. But it is going to be, I think, interesting to see how some of those games are cast. What is it going to look like on NBC, on Prime, places like that? I'm very curious to see what the breakdown actually is. I'm not going to show any graphics on the schedule or like the actual schedule itself. I do have one graphic that I will get into in just a little bit. But some takeaways that I had for why the Nuggets schedule is not awesome. Obviously, you're going to get the opening night game against Golden State. That's going to be fun. And you have to go, or you're going back home, then you're going on the road, then you're going back home, then you're going on the road for October. And you've got 2 games at home, you've got 3 games on the road. That's not that crazy. In November, you've got 7 games at home, you've got 7 games on the road. It's pretty even. And December, January, February, it starts to get a little bit unbalanced. If you got 5 games at home, 7 on the road in December. You've got 8 games at home, 9 games on the road in January. You've got 4 games at home, 7 on the road in February. And by the way, for that December number, keep in mind that there are 2, maybe 3 if Denver advances in the NBA Cup, that are currently unscheduled. So Denver will play at least 14 games in December, not 12. But currently 5 are at home, 7 on the road. Based off of like if Denver doesn't make the group final or in the group bracket challenge in that, they will just get another home game and another road game. So it really is 6 at home and 8 on the road. January's 8 at home, 9 on the road. February's 4 at home, 7 on the road. Basically, as it currently stands, and I guess we could really update this because we know that there will be another home game and road game added to the schedule in December. Currently, there's 26 home games and 33 road games in October to February. And it's actually 27 and 34. But that breakdown is very road heavy. And why that matters to me and why that is a big deal for the Nuggets is because I actually think that it's really important to have tough games up front. I think that there's a specific time that you want those tough games. I talked about this last week or earlier this week on the show. You want games in January and February that are going to challenge you. Instead, Denver got games in March that are going to challenge them from a competition level standpoint and from a rest standpoint because the beginning of that March schedule is crazy, even though a lot of those games in March and April end up being at home. Basically, in like March and April, Denver plays double the home games that they do the road games. So the NBA is kind of obviously it all gets made up at the end. You're playing the same number of home games that you do on the road, and that is true. Like I'm not here to criticize that aspect of it. But you've got 16 back-to-backs if you're Denver. That is the tied for the most in the NBA. I went and counted. Denver's taking 58 flights in the 80 games, and then there will be 2 more flights that are added to the schedule. So that's 60 total flights in 82 games. The way that the NBA put together their schedule, like they've got a 7-game road trip immediately after Christmas. They spend so much time on the road at the beginning of the season and basically through the first 2/3 of this season that Denver's going to be fighting for a lot of it. And as a result, it's probably going to be pretty difficult for them to string together consistent success because most of the time you're going to get teams best when they're at home and you're going to get teams best when they're early on in their schedule. Think about the Brooklyn Nets last year when they had veterans on their roster, Dorian Finney-Smith, Dennis Schroeder, guys like that. They were helping them win. And then Brooklyn was like, hey, wait a minute. We have to trade guys now. So the teams that you want at the beginning of your schedule are the tough ones. You want the ones that are, you're going to have to fight. You're going to have to play very hard against them. And there are some of those games. I'm not like Denver plays in the Western Conference. Every game is a relatively tough game. But I do think that it's going to be a challenge for Denver because a lot of the games that they're playing in March and April, they play some really tough teams, despite the fact that a lot of those matchups are at home. The other thing is Denver's like at the beginning March stretch that I was talking about. Yes, they've got a whole bunch of home games that are coming up there, but they've got 3 back-to-backs in the first, in the span of 12 days. So you're not getting any rest, and you need rest. And so what I'm thinking with all of this is Denver's schedule's kind of bad if you're looking for advantages. And I don't take my word for it. Todd Phillips over at the F5 put together a breakdown of teams back-to-backs versus opponent back-to-backs and kind of what the differential is there. If you look on the screen as you see it right now, the teams that benefited the most, Dallas, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Sacramento. Teams that got hurt the most, well, you've got Golden State there. You've got Miami. You've got New Orleans. You've got Phoenix. And then you've got Denver, who are by themselves. They have the most rest disadvantage games, which is basically when they're on a back-to-back versus when an opponent is on a back-to-back. And so that's a pretty tough place to be. I think, and I'm going to make a hypothesis that I don't know is borne out in fact. This is a guess. This is more like an educated guess. So much of the NBA complains about going to Denver due to the altitude. Like there's a lot of it. Any team that complains about going west to east on a back-to-back, basically your Lakers, your Phoenixes, your Golden States, your Portlands, teams like that play on the West Coast, or teams that are on the road trip, and then they come back to play Denver at the end of their road trip before going on home. Teams have complained so much that Denver doesn't get those teams on a back-to-back anymore because it is difficult. I'm not sitting here to say that it is, but the NBA has kind of written that out of Denver's schedule. It's no longer an advantage. And so many people just assume that the altitude at this point is an advantage. Little do they know and little do they care that teams are now using a whole bunch of medical stuff in order to adjust to the altitude as best as they can. Certainly better than they were 5, 10 years ago. And now that advantage just isn't the same advantage as it was before. And the NBA is now cutting down the number of times when Denver even gets the advantage in the first place, when a team has to adjust to the altitude. So it's not really as much of an advantage as people like to make it out to be anymore, especially when the NBA decides to write it out of the schedule. So Denver has this tough schedule from a miles traveled perspective, from a on the road perspective. They have a 7 game road trip, but the most amount of games that they have in a homestand is 4. Like they've got several 3 game and 4 game homestands, but they don't have a lot of like certainly nothing longer than 4. And I'm not going to sit here and say that that's like the be all end all, but if you're a team and like the Lakers, for example, I saw a lot of people complaining about they were stringing together a lot of road trips. That's not bad. And the reason why it's not bad is because that means you're at home, or at least in theory, you should be at home. As long as the NBA is paying you back with home stands, it's not a bad thing. And so the Lakers have both the longest road trip in the NBA at 8 games, but I think they have the longest homestand as well at 7 or 8, somewhere around there. So they are playing segments of the season and it reduces the number of total flights. It reduces the number of miles that you're traveling on a consistent basis. That's the goal. That should always be the goal. Obviously, you're not going to write out flights entirely. That's never going to be a thing. But for a team like Denver that travels in and out of DIA, that is always like, it's always going to take an hour, like coming home from the airport anyway, just to go get to sleep. It's just different. Like, that is a thing that the Nuggets consistently have to deal with that nobody talks about. Or like every team has their own things that they're obviously dealing with too. But I'm sitting here and positing and thinking, you know what? I think that the NBA has overcorrected on a perceived advantage that the Nuggets have had, and they have now made Denver's schedule really tough. Tied for the most back-to-backs, has the most rest disadvantage games. Their miles traveled is going up. They are like not getting the same benefits that they were before. Oh, and by the way, like as I mentioned with the October, November, December, January, February, like obviously Denver not playing a lot of home games there, but who are they playing when it comes around to March 1st? I just posted it on social earlier tonight. Um, let's just let me pull it up here. March 1st versus Minnesota on national TV. March 2nd is a back-to-back at Utah. So they gotta travel immediately. Then they come back, they play the Lakers, then they play the Knicks on a back-to-back at home. Hey, look, a two home games in a row. It's great. Um, so at least those games are at home. Then they go on the road and play OKC in a road trip. They got a couple days for it, so that's good. Then they come back and they play Houston. Then they go on the road on a back-to-back and play San Antonio. Then they go on the road and play the Lakers again on a Saturday night ABC matchup. And then they come home and they play Philly. So, like, that is a tough stretch. You're talking about OKC once, Houston once, the Lakers twice, San Antonio and New York. Like, these are teams that are going to be competitive. Oh, and you started with Minnesota, who, like, that Denver's getting up for. Minnesota's getting up for that one too. So I just think that Denver's like they're going to have it tough. And what it's going to ultimately look like, I just think like Denver's still going to win a lot of games. That's not the question. They're likely in that 54 to 55 win range. I had previously thought that they might get to 60 if things kind of broke right. I don't think there are going to be a lot of mechanisms where it's going to break so right for them that they could just rattle off consistent wins if they're always traveling, if they're always on the road, if they're always like I just don't look at that schedule and say, "Oh yeah, you know what? Denver's going to string together an 8-game winning streak or multiple." I don't think that that's what's going to happen. So, according to FanDuel, for what it's worth, The Nuggets over under this year is 53.5 wins. I was at an over before. I would kind of probably say it's a push or maybe a stay away. Um, could they go over that? Of course. I still have them at like 54 to 55 wins, but you're going to be sweating it if you bet it. Just letting you know. Denver's depth is better. That's still a thing, but it's not elite. And that is the differentiation here. Yes, there are some guys that can definitely play on a consistent basis, but are those guys going to be the ones that win them games even when the starters are out on a consistent basis? I don't think that that's the kind of depth that they have. They have depth that will help them, but not depth that is going to save them. So they're still vulnerable if multiple injuries occur. That's just how it is going to be. So it sucks. It is what it is. I don't like it, but let's get more positive on the other side. When we come back, I'm going to tell you the top 10 games on the Denver Nuggets calendar for the upcoming season. You can make sure to circle them, and we can come back to this at some point, and you can tell me how wrong I was. We'll be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, back at it. Pickaxe and Roll. Thank you so much for making me a part of your day. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really, really appreciate it. Really quickly, before we get into the rest of the show, finding great candidates to hire, it can be really difficult. Like it's trying to find a needle in a haystack, of course. You get so many different things. If you're trying to find a job, if you're trying to sort through all of it, you just never know what you're going to get. But not with ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter finds amazing candidates for you fast. And right now, you can try it for free at ziprecruiter.com/audio. You can absolutely put ZipRecruiter smart technology into it and identify top talent for your roles very quickly. Immediately after you post your job, ZipRecruiter's powerful matching technology starts showing your qualified people for it. That's the exact thing that you're wanting if you're in this business, by the way. You just want things that are direct. You want things that are going to do everything that they can to make it easier for you. Ditch the other hiring sites and let ZipRecruiter find you what you're looking for, the needle in the haystack. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try it for free at this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/audio. Again, that's ziprecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. All right, back at it. Let's get into it. The top 10 the top 10 games, excuse me, that the Nuggets are going to play on their schedule this year. It's going to be interesting because obviously these things change and you never know exactly what you're going to get. But I have a pretty good feeling that Denver's going to be in a pretty good place. Um, by the way, I mentioned that 55 game mark. According to FanDuel, the Nuggets are plus 118 to win 55 games, the 5th shortest odds behind OKC, Cleveland, Houston, and New York. Pretty understandable, I would say. Like, you play in the Western Conference, it's going to be pretty tough. That is how it works. Denver also gets 26 nationally televised games. They've got a pretty even breakdown here. ESPN gets a lot of them. NBC gets slightly less. Prime gets slightly less. Peacock will have 3 exclusive games. There might be some overlap with altitude on some of those, so you'll have to check the actual schedule. But you might have to sign up for Peacock if you want to get at least 1 or 2 of the games. I know that the Nuggets at Philly matchup is on Peacock. That's in like early January. So you've got some time, but like you'll want to know. Actually, there is one early game against Minnesota that is on Peacock as well. So you're going to need it. All right. Without further ado, the 10 best games on the Nuggets schedule. We're going in reverse order. I didn't put a Giannis versus Jokic matchup on here. It's not on national TV for some reason. That just, again, Giannis and the Bucks, it feels like the NBA is just saying goodbye to that team. And I'm not really surprised with where they are at, but not on national TV for that matchup. One of the Jokic slash maybe Embiid matchups is on national TV. Like I mentioned, it's the Peacock matchup in January. The reason why there's not multiple or why like it's not on NBC or Prime or whatever, it's because the league got burned. So we'll see whether that actually happens or not. But I think it's more likely that Embiid plays in January in Philly versus when he comes to Denver in March, like March 17th. So, all right, without further ado, the 10 best games on the schedule. Number 10, at Golden State on opening night, Thursday, October 23rd on ESPN. Fans, they're going to be dying for this one. One of the reasons is because the Nuggets are going to be one of the final teams to play on like the NBA calendar. Every team will have played on either Tuesday or Wednesday. The only teams that will have not played are the teams that are playing on Thursday night on it's on ESPN for that one. Fans are going to be dying for it. They are so excited, and they will be so excited to be amped up and just chomping at the bit a little bit. So going to be interesting to see what version of Denver comes out for that. You've got Jokic and Murray versus Steph and Jimmy, and Draymond is in the picture in some way, shape, or form. It'll be fun. I actually really think that that'll be enjoyable. Number 9, versus Dallas on Monday, December 1st. I was surprised when I put this one on the schedule. There are some other ones, like you could throw every OKC game on there. I've got 2 of them on there later here, just a bit, but you could throw a variety of teams on there. But Dallas, it will be interesting. It'll be the first look at Cooper Flag for the fan base, and that'll be interesting to monitor for sure. But it's also Anthony Davis in Dallas, and Denver has not faced Anthony Davis since he's been a part of the Dallas Mavericks before. That's early enough in the season that everybody should be healthy, good to go for that one. So that could be Nuggets fans' first introduction. Dallas has a lot of national games, so the NBA is not entirely out on them. They're going to try to feature Cooper Flag and Anthony Davis and that crew, despite the fact that Kyrie Irving is out for the season. So see what happens with it, but it should be an interesting game. That one is not like there are some that are NBA Cup games. Denver played against Dallas in the NBA Cup last year. They do not play against them this year. They do have an NBA Cup game, though, at Houston on Friday, November 21st on Prime. That will be Denver Nuggets fans' first introduction to Prime, I believe. Curious to see what that's going to look like, what the studio show is going to look like for them. And that's also the first matchup against Kevin Durant and his new team in Houston. So it will be fascinating to check out what that looks like and whether they can put some stuff together. I'm sure that team's going to be really good. The question is how much they're going to play and how much Kevin Durant's going to play. But even if he's out, they've still got the foundation for a really good squad. Like, thinking about their team, they can start Fred VanVleet, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jabari Smith, Amen Thompson, and Alperen Şengün. And that's a pretty good starting lineup that's going to be an absolute bear on defense. Like, it's going to be crazy. So they are going to be a very tough matchup for Denver, and the Nuggets are going to get a taste of that, I think, on November 21st. Number 7, versus the San Antonio Spurs on Saturday night, April 4th on Prime. That is a later game. It's the latest game I was willing to pick. There are some other April games that I think could be candidates. There's another San Antonio game there. There's an OKC game that is the second to last game on the season. I think that is, was that Peacock? Was that Prime? It was a nationally televised game. But I do think that the hope for Denver and for OKC is that those games do not matter at the end. So this one on April 4th, I believe, is like game 78, game 77, somewhere around there. So if Denver is still playing their guys, I assume San Antonio will be playing their guys if they're fighting for a playoff spot, that could be a really fun one. That would be a really interesting night. Saturday night in April. Should be really good games and should be really good basketball. Number 6 versus Golden State on Sunday night, March 29th on NBC. That's one where I think if you are thinking about the teams that are going to be really gunning for it towards the end, Golden State's going to be one of them. As long as their team doesn't self-combust with Jimmy and Draymond on the same team for a full year, like I think they're still going to be in the play-in tournament mix. They'll probably have Al Horford, DeAnthony Melton, Jonathan Kuminga, guys like that by then, but who knows what the season is actually going to bring. But with Steph, with Jimmy, with Draymond, they obviously have desires for competition and for being in the playoffs, and they'll be fighting for playoff spots. So that one, because it's in Denver, I expect Denver to be pretty geared up for that. That could be one where it's like, hey, Sunday night, NBC, really going to be an interesting matchup between both of those teams. I'm curious to see what it would actually feel like. And because sometimes Golden State is like really high quality and sometimes they're not. So if you get two teams that are both healthy and pointed in the right direction, then it's good for fireworks. A lot of the Golden State games I found were very interesting, very fun games. Number 5, the first matchup against the Los Angeles Lakers on Tuesday night, January 20th on ABC or on NBC, excuse me. That one is a premier game. Should be a fun night at Ball Arena for sure. It's one of those where I think Denver's at the end of a homestand, like 3 games at that point. So they'll be gearing up for that for sure. And Nuggets fans, I'm sure, will be very excited to see LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves in town. The hope would be to pay back the Lakers a little bit. They looked like they started to get Denver's number after Denver won the early game that included Anthony Davis on their roster. But when you've got Luka Doncic and you've got an open floor, a little bit different. Curious to see what the Nuggets are able to do with that style of play. But DeAndre Ayton, not sure he's going to play the same style or is even really capable of playing that same aggressive, sprinting, collapsing style that they were playing before. So it'll be interesting to see, but I'm looking forward to that one for sure. Number 4, I've got 2 games. It's part of that March stretch that I was talking about. And then there's another one that continues it. March 9th at OKC on Peacock. And then you've got Houston on Wednesday, March 11th on ESPN. 2 nationally televised games. You're in the midst of a really tough stretch at that point. To me, that is a stretch that is going to be very defining for the MVP race in a lot of ways. As we looked at the MVP race last year, Shea had already kind of ran away with the award from a wins perspective, but Jokic was keeping up so well over the course of that time. But ultimately, because Denver fired their coach, fired their GM, went through a 4-game losing streak and just looked pretty bad, even while Jokic was doing great, that's what ultimately lost Jokic the award, I think. The hope is that if you're Denver, that's when you're peaking. That's when you're looking your best and you are kind of in a really good groove and just excited to match up with those kinds of teams. That's potentially back-to-back games against the 2 other top 3 seeds in the Western Conference. So at OKC versus Houston, March 9th, March 11th, those are going to be big games. Number 3, continue it at the Los Angeles Lakers on Saturday, March 14th on ABC. That's a Saturday night ABC primetime game. And those matchups will be significant as well. I do think that Denver will be interesting to see where the Lakers are at that point. Are they in the contention race? Are they in the play-in race? Are they like in a good spot? Like, is Luka Doncic competing for an MVP award? Are these things to think about? I don't know. But I do think that like that could have firework potential. And because Denver gets a little bit of a gap, actually they play on the 9th and then the 11th, and then they have a back-to-back on the 12th. So I don't remember what the team is, but they have to go to LA after that. They're going to be tired. Like they are going to be gassed. The question is how much they're willing to give in a situation like that if the Lakers are really amped up for it. So there is potential for that one to be kind of a shaky one. But I do think that if Denver does have something to give, Jamal Murray will do what he can to really drive home how important that one is. And then Jokic, of course, is liable to go off for a 30-point triple-double every night. So we'll see what happens, but should be fun. Two more. Number 2 versus the Oklahoma City Thunder on Sunday night, February 1st on NBC. That is the first game that the Nuggets face the Oklahoma City Thunder. They faced them 4 times, and the first game is February 1st. The other matchups, just so you know, are going to be, let me just pull this back up again. The other matchups will be, okay, this is actually very interesting. February 1st, Sunday night NBC game. February 27th, that is an ESPN game on Friday night. You've got March 9th at OKC on Peacock. And then you've got March 10th or April 10th, excuse me, home matchup on Prime. So you've got NBC, ESPN, Peacock, and Prime. You had all 4 networks, or really the 4 kind of major ones outside of ABC, that all wanted a piece of that Nuggets Thunder matchup, and they wanted it in the prime selection of their schedule. They did not want it in October, November, and December, and I don't blame them. I get it. They wanted those games to be showcased. So you're going to get a lot of OKC versus Denver in that latter part of the schedule, and it's going to get annoying if those teams are unbalanced, but I think that it's probably going to be a 2-2 split because they're pretty even, and Denver, I think, is getting more comfortable in dealing with the kind of team that OKC is. So we'll see whether that's actually the case, but I do think that those games are going to be tough. So the one that I had circled was the February 1st, the first matchup against those teams, or between those teams. And then number 1, it's the Christmas game versus Minnesota on Christmas, the nightcap on ABC and ESPN. It's the only game that is both of those networks at the same time. That's going to be a significant one. Think about Christmas Day or Christmas night versus Phoenix, where Denver put on a show in that particular game. It went to overtime, I believe. Jokic had a 40, 15, and 15 game. Aaron Gordon had the big dunk. That was huge. And it was against Landry Shamet, which is hilarious. But that to me is going to be a big one. And the Nuggets versus T-Wolves rivalry is obviously something that everybody wants a piece of too. I know that the very first 2 games, or certainly the first game, is on the first one is on Peacock exclusively. The next matchup is not. It's actually November 15th. That is a purely altitude game. Interesting. The next one is the Christmas matchup on ABC and ESPN. And then the final one, let's see if I can find it. To go backwards through the schedule. Oh, it's March 1st on ABC. So 3 of those 4 games are on primetime, and the NBA at large knows what they're getting from those matchups. So going to be interesting. I'm very curious to see how it goes, but there's a lot of talent, like a lot of hard games. That's not the question. I think the schedule's brutal. I do not think it's favorable for the Nuggets from a full-on win standpoint. But if the Nuggets are the team that we think that they can be, they'll find ways to win no matter what. So I'm excited. I know Nuggets fans are excited too. Let me know your thoughts down below. What are your thoughts on the schedule? Was it that bad as I was kind of describing it? Am I being overreactionary? Probably. Let me know what you think. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. But that is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by good friends here at Mile High Sports. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I'll talk to you guys very soon.